Disclaimer: it's inspired by reality, shaped by imagination.
What happens when Ricky Gervais, the sharp-tongued comedian known for mocking Hollywood at award shows, takes a seat at The View to debate Sunny Hostin on a subject as sensitive as respect for elders in American culture? It started with light banter, but it didn't stay that way for long. With Whoopi Goldberg steering the discussion, Joy Behar cracking jokes on the side, and Ana Navarro adding her fiery takes, the stage was already charged. Then Ricky leaned in with his trademark grin and delivered a jab that instantly split the audience in half. Sunny didn't let it pass. She pushed back with a personal edge, speaking about family, tradition, and what it means to honor older generations. What unfolded was part comedy roast, part cultural battlefield. The audience gasped, laughed, and at times sat in stunned silence as Ricky doubled down and Sunny raised her voice to match him. By the time the segment reached its boiling point, the clash had gone beyond debate. It became a viral TV moment about whether America has truly lost its way when it comes to respecting its elders. And millions would soon be talking about it.
The lights of the View studio blazed as Ricky Gervais strode onto the set, a sly grin tugging at his lips. The audience roared with a mix of excitement and mischief. They knew Ricky's reputation. He wasn't there to play nice. He adjusted his jacket, gave a mock bow to the crowd, and immediately cracked, "Blimey, this looks like a tribunal. I half expect to be tried for crimes against Hollywood again." Laughter broke out, though some chuckles were nervous. Ricky winked at Joy, who clacked her hands together and shot back, "Don't tempt us, we've got the gavel." The stage felt alive, electric, buzzing with anticipation. Whoopi Goldberg leaned forward, smiling with that mix of warmth and authority only she could bring. "All right, Ricky, welcome to The View. Today, we're digging into a big question. Has respect for elders disappeared in American culture? It's something we've all seen shift over the years." The energy dipped into seriousness. Sunny Hostin clasped her hands, her expression earnest. "This isn't just a cultural shift, it's a crisis. Families used to honor their elders, take care of them, value their wisdom. Now too many see aging parents as a burden. I grew up in a household where my grandparents lived with us. They weren't just family, they were our teachers, our foundation." Her voice softened but carried weight. "We've lost something sacred when we stop respecting the very people who raised us." The audience hummed with approval, several nodding, a few even applauding. Ricky tilted his head, smirking. "That's very moving, Sonny, truly. But let's be honest, every generation says the next one has lost respect. The Victorians thought the Edwardians were lazy. My dad thought my lot were hooligans. And now we say kids today don't respect their elders. Maybe they just don't want to be bored to death with stories about bread used to cost 5 cents. The studio cracked with laughter, though not all of it was friendly. Sunny sat taller, lips tightening. Joy fanned herself dramatically. "Oh boy, here we go." Ricky leaned back in his chair, shrugging. "I'm not saying don't love your parents, but let's not pretend every old person is a fountain of wisdom. Some of them are just old, that's it, and respect should be earned, not handed out with a discount card." Gasps rippled through the audience. A woman in the second row muttered, "Wow," under her breath. Sunny eyes flashed, and she shot back, "That's exactly the problem, Ricky. You reduce our elders to punchlines. You call them just old, but these are people who built the world you live in, who sacrificed so we could have opportunities. That deserves respect, whether you think they're entertaining or not." Ana Navarro jumped in, gesturing with her hands. "But he's got a point, doesn't he? Respect is a two-way street. You can't just demand it because you survived long enough. I've known people in their 80s who were bitter, mean, and never lifted a finger for anyone. Should I bow to them just because they've got wrinkles?" The audience was split. Applause clashed with groans. Ricky grinned, clearly enjoying the chaos he was stirring. Sunny shook her head firmly. "You can't cherry-pick, Anna. The overall decline in respect for elders has consequences. We see seniors abandoned, isolated, forgotten. That didn't happen decades ago in the same way. We've normalized disrespect. Ricky raised his eyebrows, his tone dripping with irony. Or maybe we've just normalized honesty. If Grandpa's a jerk, we can say he's a jerk. Respecting age alone, that's like applauding me for not being dead yet. Where's the achievement in that? A ripple of laughter rolled across the crowd, though it was mixed with boos. One man clapped loudly, while a woman beside him shook her head in disapproval. Whoopi raised her hand, trying to steady the storm. All right. We're just getting started, and already this is getting heated. I can see where both sides are coming from, but let's slow down. But the tension was already simmering, and Ricky's grin suggested he had no intention of slowing down. The spark had been lit, and everyone in the room knew this conversation was about to catch fire.
The laughter from Ricky's last jab hadn't even died down before he leaned forward, elbows on the table, eyes twinkling with mischief. You know what I think this is really about? It's guilt. Americans don't visit their parents enough, so they invent this narrative of respect to make themselves feel better. Call once a month, send a Christmas card, and suddenly you're a saint. Respect shouldn't be ceremonial, it should be honest. The audience erupted. Some clapped, some booed, and a few groaned audibly. A woman shouted, "That's cruel," while a man in the back barked, "He's not wrong." The set buzzed like a live wire. Sunny Hostin sat upright, her hands folded tight on the table, though her voice carried fire. That's not guilt, Ricky. That's culture. In communities across this country, Latino, Black, Asian, family and respect for elders aren't optional. They're part of our DNA. We don't call once a month. We live with our grandparents. We learn from them daily. And yes, they deserve respect because they've walked longer roads than we have. Dismissing that is dismissing the foundation of family itself. The audience burst into applause. Sunny's voice cut through with conviction, the kind that pulled her to her side. Ricky only smirked wider. "Oh, come on," he said, raising his hands like he was warding off an attack. "You're painting this rosy picture like every grandparent is Yoda. Some are more like Darth Vader. You can't universalize respect. If a bloke is 70 and he's been an idiot for 70 years, he doesn't suddenly get knighted into sainthood because his hair's gone grey. Respect the good ones, sure, but let's stop pretending old age itself is an accomplishment." The studio filled with a mix of gasps and nervous laughter. Joy Behar slapped the table, laughing through her disbelief. "Oh my God, Ricky, you're going to get us canceled before the commercial break." Ana Navarro leaned in, pointing at Ricky with a half smile, half glare. "You keep saying idiot, but who defines that? Maybe young people who are too busy scrolling TikTok to realize their grandparents survived wars, discrimination, poverty, things they can't imagine. Calling them boring or outdated is more about our own arrogance than their lack of value." The crowd roared in approval, clapping so loudly that Whoopi raised her eyebrows, clearly pleased the conversation had struck such a chord. Ricky wasn't fazed. He leaned back, crossed his arms, and delivered another grenade. "And yet here we are, pretending every elder has earned their halo. If true wisdom came with age, Congress would be the most enlightened place on earth. Look at those people. Half of them are ancient, and they still can't agree on where to sit." The room exploded in laughter, even from those who'd booed him earlier. Joy nearly fell out of her chair, and Whoopi covered her face with her hand, muttering, "Lord, have mercy." But Sunny wasn't laughing. Her tone sharpened. "See, that's your problem, Ricky. You reduce everything to comedy. You trivialize pain, sacrifice, and dignity. Yes, there are flawed elders, just like there are flawed young people. But when you chip away at the idea of respecting elders, you're chipping away at the idea of respecting anyone. That's how cultures collapse." The applause this time was thunderous, a standing ovation from a pocket of the audience. Ricky's grin faltered for a second before he shook his head dismissively. "Oh, come on. Culture collapse. That's a bit dramatic, don't you think? I'm not calling for open season on the elderly. I'm just saying respect is something you earn through your character, not your birth certificate." Joy couldn't resist. "So if someone makes it to 90, that's not impressive?" Ricky leaned toward her, smirking. "Impressive? Sure, like surviving a traffic jam. Doesn't mean they get to tell me how to live my life." The audience gasped. One woman shouted, "That's disgusting," while another man yelled, "He's right." The split was sharp, electric. Sunny's voice rose, passion now cutting through the air. But that's why we need more respect. You think reaching 90 is just survival? That's resilience. That's decades of wisdom, of battles fought and lessons learned. You're mocking people who have built legacies, who deserve to be honored, not dismissed. The applause rolled again, this time joined by chants of respect, respect from the younger audience members in the front row. Whoopi tried to mediate over the noise. All right, this is clearly hitting a nerve. Ricky, Sunny, let's take a breath before we all combust. But Ricky wasn't done, and neither was Sunny. Their eyes locked, the sparks now visible, as if the studio itself was bracing for the next explosion.
The audience's chants of respect, respect slowly faded, leaving a charged silence hanging in the studio. Sunny Hostin's face softened, but her eyes glistened with determination. She leaned forward, her voice quieter now, pulling the attention of everyone in the room. "You joke, Ricky," she began, "but let me tell you about my grandmother. She came to this country with nothing but her faith and the clothes on her back. She worked 2 jobs, cleaning houses by day and sewing late into the night. She raised 6 children in a tiny apartment, and when I was born, she helped raise me, too. She taught me Spanish, taught me to pray, taught me what dignity meant when the world tried to take it away. When she passed, my family didn't just lose a person, we lost a library of wisdom, a moral compass. And I worry that if we keep dismissing our elders, those lessons disappear. That's not dramatic, that's reality." The studio was utterly still. A woman in the front row dabbed her eyes with a tissue. Even Joy, usually quick with a quip, sat quietly, her expression softening. Ricky shifted uncomfortably in his seat, the grin fading. He cleared his throat, his tone less mocking now. "Look, Sunny, I don't doubt your grandmother was incredible, truly. People like her are heroes, and they deserve every ounce of respect. But that's my point. She earned it. She worked, sacrificed, gave her family everything. Of course she deserves honor. But what about the old bloke who spent his life being selfish? Do we owe him the same respect just because he's got gray hair? That's where I draw the line." Some in the audience nodded. Others frowned. The divide was visible. Half the crowd leaning toward Ricky's blunt logic, the other half swayed by Sunny's heartfelt conviction. Sunny's voice quivered, but she didn't back down. "You think respect is a transaction, but in many cultures it isn't. It's a value we instill from childhood. It's saying, even if you failed, even if you were flawed, I still see your humanity. I still acknowledge your place in the story of our family and our country. Without that, what are we teaching our kids? To toss people aside when they're no longer useful?" The audience erupted in applause, some rising to their feet. Some shouted, "Amen!" Others clapped in rhythm. Ricky watched, his face softening for the briefest of moments before he sighed. "Sunny, I'm not erasing her. I'm saying she was extraordinary. And that's the difference. Extraordinary people, regardless of age, deserve extraordinary respect. I just won't accept that every elder automatically gets it. Respect is too important to hand out like a participation trophy." The audience reaction was a storm. Half cheers, half boos. One side chanting Sunny's name, the other clapping for Ricky's unapologetic stance. The co-hosts exchanged wide-eyed looks. They knew they were witnessing daytime TV at its most combustible. In that moment, the clash wasn't just about respect for elders. It had become a raw confrontation about what it means to value human beings at all. The stage was set for the breaking point.
The applause from Sunny's heartfelt words still echoed through the studio when Ricky leaned forward again. This time, no grin, no wink, just steel. His voice carried a weight that sharpened the edges of every syllable. "Sunny, I respect your grandmother. I respect your story, but let's stop pretending that's universal. For every inspiring elder, there's someone who's made a lifetime of bad choices, hurting the people around them. And I'm not going to stand here and say those people automatically deserve respect just because they've reached a certain age. That's dishonest and it's dangerous. The audience reacted instantly. Half clapped in agreement, half booed so loudly it rattled the cameras. One woman in the front row shouted, "That's heartless," while a man barked back, "No, he's right." Sunny's composure cracked. Her voice rose with passion. "You keep using words like dangerous, Ricky, but what's actually dangerous is telling society it's okay to discard people. That's how abuse happens. That's how neglect happens. You joke about bread costing 5 cents, but my grandmother survived segregation. She carried scars I can't even imagine, and she still gave love freely. Respect isn't about a resume. It's about acknowledging someone's humanity." The studio roared in approval. Ricky shook his head, muttering something under his breath, and Sunny snapped, "Say it out loud!" And he did, louder, sharper. Humanity isn't automatic either. Some people spend their lives destroying others. Why should age wash that away? If someone's been cruel their whole life, growing old doesn't make them a saint, it just makes them an old bully. The audience gasped. Some clapped, but many groaned. A young woman in the front row covered her mouth with a hand. The tension hit like a punch. Ana Navarro leaned forward, eyes blazing. "Ricky, do you hear yourself? You're using the worst examples to dismiss an entire value system. Respect for elders isn't about sainthood. It's about gratitude, about remembering we didn't build this world alone." Ricky shot back without missing a beat. "Gratitude for what, Ana? For inheriting wars, poverty, climate change? Every generation messes things up for the next. Should we just clap and bow forever? Respect should be earned fresh, not passed down like an heirloom." The crowd erupted. Chaotic applause, boos, whistles. It was nearly impossible to tell which side was louder. Whoopi raised both hands, her voice booming over the noise. All right, we've got to keep this from going completely off the rails." But it already had. Sunny turned toward Ricky fully now, her voice trembling with fury. "This isn't a comedy monologue, Ricky. This is real life, real families, real elders who are suffering. Do you know how many seniors die alone in nursing homes because people think they're not worth the visit? And you come here laughing, calling them boring, saying they don't deserve respect? That's cruel. That's cruel." The audience shouted in support, clapping rhythmically. "Sunny! Sunny! Sunny!" Ricky leaned back in his chair, arms folded, his face hardened. Cruel? No. What's cruel is forcing young people to pretend, making them bow their heads and bite their tongues when their granddad spent his whole life being a racist or an abuser or worse. Pretending respect for people who destroyed others, that's cruel. That's dishonest. The studio went still for half a second before a loud collective gasp filled the air. Joy Bea's eyes widened. "Oh my God, Ricky!" Sunny's face flushed with anger, her voice rising above the din. "You don't get to stand here and weaponize the worst-case scenario against an entire generation of elders. You don't get to erase my grandmother's sacrifices or anyone else's because some people failed. That's not logic, that's cynicism." The audience exploded again, the tension now unbearable. Whoopi clapped her hands together, desperate to rein it in. Guys, listen, we can debate this without tearing the roof off the studio." But Ricky shot back, slamming his palm against the table. The sound cracked through the air like a gunshot. The audience gasped, and some even screamed. "I'm not tearing the roof off, Whoopi. I'm telling the truth. Respect is earned, and if you can't handle that truth, maybe you don't respect honesty either." The noise was deafening. Cheers from one side, boos from the other. The split was violent, almost physical. Whoopi moved between them, her hands out. "Sit down, both of you. This isn't going to end with someone walking off." But the moment the words left her lips, Ricky stepped back from the table, eyes blazing, jaw tight. He pointed toward the audience. "You want honesty? There it is. Take it or leave it." The audience erupted again as Ricky turned toward the wings. For a second, it looked like he was about to storm off. The camera zoomed in, every gasp, every stunned face captured. Sunny's voice cracked through the chaos, the final word before commercial. "Then maybe you don't belong here, Ricky." And with that, the studio erupted into pandemonium.
The studio was chaos. Audience members were still on their feet, some shouting Ricky's name in support, others booing so loudly producers struggled to keep control. Ricky stood near the edge of the stage, chest heaving, jaw tight, as though debating whether to storm off for good or deliver one final parting shot. Sunny remained at the table, her hands gripping the edge, her knuckles white, her voice trembling but steady enough to carry. You don't get to dismiss an entire generation of people who built this country. They deserve more than a punchline. A wave of applause followed, and many in the audience sat back down, nodding firmly. Ricky turned halfway toward her, his voice sharp but quieter than before. And you don't get to hide behind sentiment while ignoring the truth. Respect should be a choice, not a requirement. He straightened his jacket, and without another word, walked toward the curtain. The cameras tracked him until he disappeared backstage. The silence afterward was thick, uncomfortable, the kind that settles when no one knows what to say. Whoopi was the first to break it, her tone measured but laced with exhaustion. Well, that escalated quickly. Folks, let's all take a breath. Audience laughter broke out, uneasy, scattered, but enough to lighten the air just a little. Joy Behar leaned forward, shaking her head. I've been on this show a long time, but I don't think I've ever seen someone slam the table and almost walk out mid-debate. That's one for the books. Anna Navarro wasn't laughing. She turned to Sunny, her voice warm and supportive. You held your ground, Sunny. That wasn't easy. And I think a lot of people at home are going to be proud of you for refusing to let him trivialize something so personal. The audience clapped, many standing again, this time for Sunny. She smiled faintly, but her eyes glistened. She blinked back emotion, then exhaled deeply. Look, I don't expect everyone to agree with me, but when we dismiss elders, when we decide they're only worthy of respect if they fit some perfect mold, we're stripping away their dignity. That's not the kind of culture I want my kids to inherit. The applause was thunderous this time, echoing through the studio like a wave. Whoopi nodded firmly. And that's the beauty of this table. We don't always agree. Lord knows we don't. But these conversations matter. Sometimes they get messy. Sometimes they get emotional. But they make people think, and that's why we're here. Joy couldn't resist adding one last quip. Plus, you never know who's going to storm off next. We keep you entertained. The crowd laughed, the tension finally beginning to ease. But the moment didn't end in the studio. It had already spilled into the digital world. Clips of Ricky slamming the table were being posted on Twitter within minutes, racking up thousands of views in real time. The hashtag Ricky versus Sunny trended before the show even cut to its next commercial break. One viral tweet read, Ricky Gervais just told Sunny humanity isn't automatic. This is the wildest thing I've ever seen on daytime TV. Another countered, Sunny Hostin standing up for elders on live TV while Ricky mocks them. This isn't comedy, this is cruelty. Instagram reels circulated the moment Sunny shouted, say it out loud, and Ricky fired back, louder, sharper. TikTok edits layered dramatic music under the clip of him slamming the table. People weren't just talking, they were dissecting, debating, and choosing sides. Meanwhile, backstage, sources whispered that Ricky had calmed down quickly after exiting, pacing the hallway but refusing to apologize. A producer reportedly tried to coax him back for the final segment, but Ricky's only response was, they wanted honesty, they got it. Back on the panel, Sunny sat a little straighter, finally smiling again. I'll say this, I'd rather have a tough conversation than none at all. But I do hope people at home remember the heart of this. Our elders deserve love, not neglect. The audience gave her a standing ovation. Whoopi leaned in with her signature gravity. Whether you agree with Ricky or with Sunny, what happened here today reflects a bigger truth. Respect is complicated. It's cultural, it's generational, and it's personal. But one thing's clear. This country is still figuring out where it stands. The camera panned across the audience, faces full of thought, debate, and intensity, before zooming in one last time on Sunny, still steady at the table, and the empty chair where Ricky had sat. The image alone told the story.
a clash that went beyond talk show banter into something raw, uncomfortable, and unforgettable. As the credits rolled, Whoopi summed it up in one line that would be replayed across networks. "Sometimes the truth doesn't fit neatly into a segment, but it sure gets people talking." And that it did. Because long after Ricky walked off stage, the conversation raged on around kitchen tables, on social media feeds, and across generations about whether America has lost its respect for elders, or if respect must always be earned. It was messy, it was emotional, and it was viral. And it cemented itself as one of The View's most unforgettable moments. If you enjoyed this powerful showdown, make sure to subscribe for more dramatic celebrity clashes, emotional debates, and unforgettable TV moments. Drop a comment below. Do you think respect for elders has disappeared or simply changed?